Good Monday, everybody. Welcome to Charting with Dan. I'm your host, Dan Murrell. Joining me this week for the first time on Charting, Danielle Radford.
Hello, we've moved the Dan cam.
Yes.
We have like seats and a desk.
I know, right? The chairs haven't sunk so far.
Well,
Fingers crossed. We'll see. I might be giving you we might both look like Bran Stark by the end of this, giving our seated analysis, even more seated. The Avengers have knocked off their throne. Speaking of thrones, the Avengers are now bowing to the new king, John Wick, which, first of all, King John Wick is a movie that I would watch.
He's my king.
He should be everyone's king. John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, one of the most unwieldy titles of the year, but one of the least unwieldy movies of the year, is the new #1, knocking Avengers In Game off the top of the charts. $56 million. That is way more than people had pegged it doing pre-release, over the expectation of what they thought this movie would do.
You know, I feel like with these John Wick movies, they're always more surprising than you think that they're going to be, because it seems like it's really simple, but it's starting to, and I haven't seen this one yet. I'm very excited to. I plan on seeing it this week. It feels like, this is going to sound like an insult, I do not mean it that way. It's gaining in the way that Fast and Furious went from being kind of, a niche car movie, fun car chases, to being an event because there's so much happening.
Yeah, they do keep just upping the ante as far as the action goes. Keanu obviously is... Everyone loves Keanu Reeves. Everybody I have not met one person who does not like Keanu Reeves.
I appreciate this was like a Keanu Reeves love fest online this past week. It has been fantastic. So many great people with stories about running into him and how nice he was, or working with him. He is the unproblematic king that we all deserve.
He is. Again, he's the king.
He's the king.
Bow to King Keanu. Just to put it in perspective, the $56 million opening weekend for John Wick Chapter 3 is higher than the final domestic gross for the first John Wick movie. This is what you want to see with the third chapter and the franchise, is it is building on each one. It's almost double the opening of John Wick Chapter 2 back in February 2017. And the other thing that's great for this is the openings have been getting bigger. They've been making more money, but the budgets have not been going up that much.
That's
movie to
awesome.
movie. It made $56 million. It was budgeted somewhat modestly at $55 million. So it's going to be a moneymaker. A bigger opening than expected. A third chapter that's bigger than the second chapter. So I guess the only question that would be is this a franchise that is climbing, or is this a franchise that is peaking? Who knows?
It's hard to say, but I don't count out Keanu.
Never count out
Keanu. Do not count him out. And again, just like with the Fast and Furious movies, they've been doing nothing but building on themselves. And I think if you continue to and I love the way that they are upping the ante, and that this isn't, it feels weird to call something, that cost $55 million modest. But
today it is.
Yeah, I like seeing something that isn't one of these huge, $300 million, behemoths actually get to a point where it can start making some serious money. So, I'm going to go see a part 4, part 5, and part 6 as long as they keep being fun and about dogs.
Well, let's take a trip down memory lane. Keanu Reeves' memory lane. This was Keanu's second best domestic opening of all time, second only to The Matrix Reloaded, which is the first sequel to The Matrix. John Wick Chapter 3, number 2 there, $56 million, just over The Matrix Revolutions. Bram Stoker's Dracula, number 4.
That's surprising.
Then, that is surprising. When I was doing this research, I guess I was on the young side when that came out. I'd forgotten that was such a big hit.
Yeah.
And then The Day the Earth Stood Still at number 5. But since Keanu is an ageless Time Lord, we know it is known.
It is known.
It is known.
There
we
are
know
photos.
this. I thought we do this sometimes from time to time. Let's even the timeline out. And if all moments in Keanu time were equal,
and they all are.
This is Keanu's opening weekends domestically, adjusted for inflation. A lot of things the same. However, The Matrix Reloaded, if it opened today, would have made over $137 million in its opening weekend.
Whew.
Matrix Revolutions would have been second with $72 million, although I always forget how remarkably sharp that drop was
That
between
is a
Matrix 2 and
huge
Matrix
drop.
3. But Bram Stoker's Dracula, $66 million.
Wouldn't you like to see something like that again?
Man, Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie opening to $66 million. The 90s were a crazy time.
Some things are good.
Some things are good. John Wick Chapter 3, the number 4 spot, just over the original Matrix film in 1999, which opened, adjusted for inflation, to $49 million. So still a top 5 opening for Keanu, but the Matrix films comprising even more of his big opening filmography, which isn't a shocker.
No, and with the Matrix, I do think, I feel like a lot of people know this, maybe some don't, especially the younger people. The marketing for The Matrix, no one knew what that movie was going into.
No.
And that was on purpose. You did not know. And so no one was psyched. They knew it was Keanu Reeves. By that time, it was a semi-declining Keanu Reeves. I wouldn't say falling star, but he wasn't at his peak at that time.
He'd had the little pop with Speed.
Yes.
And so he was known to do action, but no one at the time thought he would be headlining this massive action franchise.
Yeah, I knew about it because I was working at a movie theater at the time, and even then I hadn't seen it. And so I think I've talked about this before. When you work at a movie theater, you can see any movie you want for a half an hour at a time on your break. And so The Matrix was one that I was watching because that was just something that you're used to. You know, you get your free popcorn and your free cup of cheese, and you're 17, so you're going to live forever. And so then you go and you see the movie, and I walked in enough time where everything was explained.
Yes.
And I immediately, off my shift, had to go watch the rest of the movie.
It was
immediately, and tell all of my friends, because no one knew opening weekend what this thing was.
It's weird to explain it to people, but because it's such a part of the DNA now. But to not even, because The Matrix, no, you didn't even know what it was.
No.
Cornet. Nobody knew what it was about. You
What
knew that it
is
was
The
crazy people
Matrix?
doing this.
Yeah, what is The Matrix?
Yeah.
Was the tagline. That was how they marketed the movie. No one had any idea. I would love for a movie to be able to pull that off now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there will be something similar, and there have been little things here and there.
TV shows, I think, do a
TV
better
shows
job.
do a lot of that.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Keanu. I'm happy for Keanu. I'm happy for John Wick. I've liked all 3 of those movies, and we'll see if there will be a John Wick Chapter 4 and how it will do. Let's go back to the top 5. Avengers In Game, the number 2 film for the weekend. It dropped 52% to stay just ahead of Pokemon Detective Pikachu for the number 2 spot. Its total now stands at $771 million, and it hit another big milestone this past week. We've been talking about its race with Avatar globally for the highest grossing film of all time, but it has now passed Avatar domestically. Avengers In Game is now the second highest grossing film of all time domestically, not adjusted for inflation. So Star Wars The Force Awakens, the only movie in its way now. That's the good news. The bad news, and we mentioned this a little bit, well, it's not bad. There's no bad news for Avengers In Game at this point. It's fine. Everybody's fine. Disney's fine.
Everyone's great.
Everyone is wonderful. However, if you're chasing that number 1 spot, the bad news as far as that goes is we talked a little bit last week about how it was falling off the pace of The Force Awakens. It opened substantially higher, but as the days have gone on, because Force Awakens came out at the end of the year and went into January and February, whereas as we've seen with Pokemon, with John Wick Chapter 3, which overperformed, it's got competition and nothing but more competition going the way. It has fallen off the pace. It's now day to day about $40 million less. The gross is about $40 million behind what The Force Awakens had made at this point in its run. Plus, it's, as you just saw on that chart, about $150-ish million behind The Force Awakens for what it needs to make. It's not looking good, at least for now. At least for now. For it to catch The Force Awakens. However, don't put it past Disney. First of all, with Spider-Man Far From Home coming out, Far From Home, space, coming out, as opposed to not Homecoming. It's very difficult. It's very different to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. They could see that bump that Captain Marvel saw when Avengers Endgame came out, where you see a bit of a resurgence for business. Plus, do not put it past Disney. to put that movie back out in theaters
Yep,
at the
that's
end of the year. Do
exactly what I was
the
thinking.
one last experience thing and try to nudge those numbers up even more.
Yeah, see it more in IMAX because, as we know, and I'm sure as you all know, the holidays can be a really big time for movies. People are on vacation, they're visiting family, and sometimes with family, you just don't want to talk much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to go out and you want to see a movie, and again, just my theater experiences, Christmas Day was one of our biggest days.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving was one of our biggest days. Those are huge days for movies. So
Yeah, I the odds of it passing The Force Awakens this summer are looking less optimistic, but never say never, because if Disney can push this over, and it's really them dethroning one of their films for another film, but it's a great headline, so we'll see. But for now, it's passed Avatar domestically. It is the number 2 highest grossing film of all time, unadjusted for inflation. Looking back at the top 5, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, as I mentioned, held decently well, dropped around 53% for the weekend. That's not terrible. It's
that
not
feels
terrible.
about average.
Will soon pass the $100 million mark. It'll be the first $100 million movie of the summer, which used to be like, that's it. That's all you ever need to do. A movie made $100 million, you're golden. But inflation is a B word. A Dog's Journey, number 4, but by a substantial margin. Maybe this franchise should have stayed in January. That's where it traditionally has been. And they already opened a Dog's Blank movie this year.
Yeah.
So I think people, plus, I'm going to be honest, I didn't see the movie. And one of the reasons why is when my girlfriend and I are looking at movie options and what do we want to go to the theaters to see, we don't necessarily want to go to the one that promises the dog dying not just one time, but many times over. That does not sound like a fun time at the theater to me.
No, I don't want to watch the dog death movie unless I'm getting paid for it.
It's like Marley and me and me and me and me and me
and her and
her
me.
and us. I don't want to see.
No.
It sounds. I'm sure that it's probably sweet and very nice, but it sounds horribly depressing.
Also, all of these movies very much center on what the dogs can do for the humans.
Yes.
It's never about what the humans are doing for the dogs.
They're sweet dogs.
All dogs are great. All dogs are good boys.
They all go to heaven.
They all go to heaven.
They all deserve pets. They all deserve niceness. That was the one. I didn't think Game of Thrones could unite anybody in anything anymore, but there was the one thing that people were united about last night was that Ghost finally got some well-deserved loving and some pets.
Such a good boy.
Such a good boy.
You deserve those pets.
He deserved all the pets. So yeah, I don't know. That just was not on top of the list on what am I going to do. It just sounded not fun. The Hustle rounds out the top 5. Dropped 52%. Again, for a comedy, not wonderful, but what are you going to do? Also not in the top 5, finishing in 8th place with just over $2 million was The Sun Is Also a Star. My least favorite title of the year thus far. Yeah.
But it is. The Sun Is Also... Get it?
Yes, but...
it's true.
Because Roth was the first one that mentioned this, but that's just a statement of fact. It's just a factual statement. That's not it's not a very deep sentiment. It's just stating a fact. Yes, that's my answer. It's like, The Sun Is Also a Star. Yes, it is.
Yeah, we learned that in school.
Well, apparently everybody knew that because it finished in 8th place with just over $2 million. The only thing keeping it from being a total flame out is the budget was $9 million, but still, audiences who did go weren't very impressed. B- cinema score. Not a great one when you're bringing your core audience in. So yeah, Sun Is Also a Star.
Sorry, Zendaya? Is it a Zendaya movie?
It is not a Zendaya movie.
It says, the very, very talented woman from Grownish.
She's Grownish and Blackish.
And
yes,
Blackish. She's amazing.
She is.
She deserved better.
I had her name in my review, and it is the numbers have pushed the names. I can remember numbers or I can remember names, but I can't remember both.
Look, I got hit in the head with a grill of a bus one time. My brain is Swiss cheese, my friend.
Yeah, there you go. Well, The Sun Is Also a Star is also Swiss cheese. Not going to do very well in the theaters. But what did do well, at least on a per theater basis, is a movie called The Souvenir, which was picked up by A24 out of Sundance earlier this year. And here, audiences love a good deal.
Yes.
If you go see The Souvenir, it's open in 4 theaters, $19,600 per theater. if you go see The Souvenir, you get 2 Swintons for the price of 1.
Oh.
It stars Tilda Swinton and her daughter, Honor Swinton Byrne, and a British actor named Tom Burke. It's directed by writer-director Joanna Hogg, who is from Britain. And it's about a young film student and an older man. They're in a relationship. It's obviously a smaller film, 4 theaters, A24. They pick up the big ones. They pick up the little ones, mostly medium-sized ones and little ones. But yeah, if you're a fan of the Swintons, and who isn't? The Swintons and the Reeveses both have a lot of fans. Then check out The Souvenir if you're probably in New York or Los Angeles, because those 4 theaters are not in Scranton.
Oh, man, I'm sorry, the rest of the world.
Yeah. Although it's probably likely it'll probably be on VOD either this week or next week or soon. But if you want to check out The Souvenir, you can check it out soon. Let's go from the tiny per theaters to the world. That's what we like to do. We like to start like big domestically, and then we go small domestically, and then we just go out globally.
Very exciting.
I like chaos.
I've heard it's a ladder.
It is a ladder. It's a ladder. We do the Littlefinger voice in The Office a lot. I don't know if we've done this. We do it a lot. It's not even the Littlefinger voice. It comes from the Scorch Trials. From the trailer from the Scorch Trials, like, you'll never survive a day in the Scorch. And then it's just, but then he leaned into it as the show, like when Game of Thrones began, Littlefinger was just like, yes, my Lady Catelyn, I knew her well. And then by the time it was the end, it's like, Sansa, let me tell you something.
It's that tsetse fly. I have one sometimes too.
Yeah.
They call it a tsetse fly in voice,
Yes.
voice vocal things.
I don't even know how we got there. It doesn't matter. I'm punchy. I got up at like 3:30 Central Time this morning to catch a flight here. I am so punchy, and it shows. Yeah.
Oh.
It's all right. I was in Houston for a Schmodown event, which you can check out soon. Check it out. Let's look at the top worldwide. What are we talking about? Worldwide numbers. John Wick ruled the United States and ruled the world. Keanu Reeves is the emperor, really, of the world. $92 million global opening again. That's great for a lot of movies, but for a movie that's budgeted around $55 million, that's awesome. Again, that's more than the global total for the first John Wick film. It'll pass the global total for the second John Wick film. So good for Keanu. And then Avengers and Pokemon, much like domestically, they were jockeying for position. But on this one, Pokemon just edges out Avengers In Game globally. Then A Dog's Journey and The Hustle, 4 and 5, mainly driven by their domestic grosses. Yeah. The big movies, especially in the summer, are either the big global blockbusters right now, or the smaller ones that are driven domestically. Although there are some things like Capernaum, the foreign film, which bubbled up in China the last couple of weeks. Sometimes those will pop up. Those are fun little worldwide stories. But yeah, Pikachu and Endgame clashing. They pretty much tied, but John Wick tops around the world. So we've talked about Avengers In Game and Avatar. Their global grosses. Endgame is chasing Avatar to become the #1 global film of all time. Let's see where that stands right now, today. It is about $150 million behind Avatar, so it's creeping.
It's getting there.
It's creeping. United States still averages about 29% of the marketplace. The percentage for China dipped down a couple of points, and the other markets dipped up 48% now of the complete global gross for Avengers Endgame is from all other markets outside the U.S. and China. That's good news. They want that number to tick up because China's pretty much spent as far as what Endgame is going to make. The U.S. has still got a little bit of life. As we were mentioning, we'll see what happens. But $150 million doesn't sound like much. But as we mentioned, big movies hitting starting this weekend. So I still think this is a horse race. It's going to be close. And ultimately, as we mentioned, depending on how close it is, Disney can just goose. They're literally competing against themselves.
Well, that's just life
because
now.
They own Avatar. Now they own Avatar, but it should be mentioned that $30 million of that Avatar money is a special edition re-release that came out in August of 2010. So it's not like Avengers In Game would be playing dirty pool because Avatar's already got some of that re-release money there. I don't know. What do you think? You think it'll creep up to that #1 spot?
I think it will, and I think this is something we've talked about before too. I only saw Avatar in the movie. I paid the what was it, $25 experience to see, and that was back in that money because it wasn't just a movie. It was a ride. It was an experience.
It was like Captain EO.
Yeah, it was, and you can feel however you want to feel about the movie.
Yeah.
I have always felt like it was a delivery system for that 3D for me. and it was beautiful. It felt like you could touch things. So obviously that's going to be something that plays into how well the box office did. There is still IMAX. There are still 3D still exists. So I don't know. We'll see. I would be very interested to see if they started trying to pump out more of these showings for Endgame.
Here's the question, though. If Endgame takes it over, then, and whenever Avatar 2 comes out, do they then, with the same company, but do they then re-release Avatar? If it's like, let's say Endgame wins it by like $5 million, because it could be that close. It's going to be very close, either way. If Endgame's got it by like $5 million, do they then re-release Avatar when Avatar 2 comes out? Because like re-experience the first one, and then it's just it's like a horse race. Forever. It's the Hound versus the Mountain in perpetuity.
Yeah, forever. Except, again, at the end of the day, it's the same person holding the purse.
Right. It's like if the Hound fought the Mountain, but they were like attached to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Like cat dog.
Yes, like cat dog. So really, it's not at all like the Hound of the Mountain.
You know, it's what a great way to keep making money.
Yeah.
Just keep releasing. You did the thing. Just keep releasing it and you know what? Anytime they release Avatar in 3D for that experience, I will go. It's an experience that's worth it.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think for 3D, what it did was so unique.
Yes, but I don't know if I would today go again to see the original Avatar in 3D. Because I've seen a lot of other movies in 3D.
Yeah, but they've never been as good.
That's true. They were not as good.
Nothing has touched the way that Avatar and being in it makes you feel. You feel like you were in there. That's why people got all depressed.
That's true. They wanted to go live in Pandora.
Yeah.
But I feel like now we all live in our own personal Pandoras of our own creation, just that we create on with whatever social media and everything. Like everyone lives in their own world
bubble.
already now. Yeah, everyone's got their own bubbles. So I don't know. I would just love if they were just like Batman and the Joker. It's just like, they're destined to do this forever. We'll see. Let's look at the 2019 worldwide landscape. You know what's number one. Avengers In Game is number one. It's still running up those numbers. Captain Marvel's number two. Everything else stays the same except for Pokemon Detective Pikachu. That jumps up to number 9, jumping over Pegasus and Us, which it's great that Us was on the global list for this long.
Even at all,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
For Us to come out in February and drop off of the list in May?
After Avengers, after those big weekends?
After Shazam and Dumbo and all that other stuff, Us drops out of the 2019 worldwide box office list. Domestically, there's another film that dropped off this week because of Pokemon Detective Pikachu. That jumps in at number 10, and Alita Battle Angel gets dropped out of the 2019 top 10 domestically. It had much more appeal internationally than it did here domestically. So Alita Battle Angel out of the top 10. Other than that, Dumbo jumps over Glass for the number 6 spot. The top 5 is unchanged, but this is the time of year when this list is going to start changing quite a bit. And speaking of changes, the summer movie report, Danielle, as you know, every year we track the summer movies. This is the first year. Up until this week, everybody's a winner because this is the first year we've had a full 10 movies that have come out in wide release for the chart. So all the summer movies, congratulations. This week and only this week, you're all winners. There are no losers. But it's going to get brutal starting next week. So John Wick Chapter 3 jumps in at number 2. Pokemon Detective Pikachu still the number 1 film of the summer a few weeks in. Intruder Long Shot jumped down a couple. A Dog's Journey jumps in at 8. The Sun Is Also a Star. Have fun with your 1 week on the chart. Tolkien, the other films that are there. Enjoy it because starting this week...
Yep.
You're going to start dropping like flies because this is Memorial Day weekend here in the U.S. For a lot of people, this is the actual start. This used to be the actual beginning of summer movie season.
It just keeps creeping back and back.
It just keeps creeping back to May. But this is like the actual start of the summer season for a lot of people in the U.S. With Memorial Day, it's a 4-day weekend. By the way, that means that charting will not be on next Monday. We'll be here next Tuesday to cover the 4-day holiday weekend. But we have Disney. They just keep making movies. Aladdin
forever.
is coming out
Until we
this
all die.
weekend. Booksmart, which is a sleeper comedy that some people have circled on their list for a potential breakout.
I'm really looking forward to Booksmart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks, it looks incredibly funny. Everything from I've seen from the trailers looks great. I would love if it would get on one of these lists.
Yeah.
I like seeing comedies on that list. I miss when they used to dominate them.
It is not unheard of, and it's happened so many times before that a female-driven comedy, whether that's rated R, rated PG-13, whatever, will end up on the top 10 summer lists. It's happened with Bridesmaids.
Yep.
It's happened with, I believe, The Heat. Spy, I think, was on there. Ghostbusters was a top 10 summer
Girls
movie.
Trip did that for.
I think
if
Girls
not, it was very
Trip,
close.
I think Girls Trip might have snuck on or was very close. It is not unheard of for a female-driven comedy to hit the top 10. Is that going to be book smart? Maybe we'll see. Again, critically, since it started screening at the festivals and stuff, it's gotten a lot of buzz. And then another movie that people are very interested in, not in as big a release pattern, certainly as Aladdin at least, is Brightburn from producer James Gunn, the sort of dark Superman take. That opens this weekend. So there's a lot of options for people this weekend at the box office. I think the conventional wisdom says that Aladdin is going to be the #1 movie of the year, but there's been a lot of questions about how big is it going to be and how are people going to react, because it's been very mixed so far.
Yeah, and I understand why they do it, but I felt like the more that they're showing different parts of the movie, I think that was out of context without getting to see the whole movie. I think that was hanging them up. They released the Prince Ali, they released that bit, and that did not go over well on social media. But that's also out of context. We don't know what this movie is, and this movie isn't that movie. It's definitely going to be the most talked about thing on social media this weekend.
Oh, most definitely. And the review for Aladdin, I believe, will be here on Screen Junkies News on Wednesday.
Ooh.
The movie opens on Friday. You'll see it here on Wednesday, and I believe, I think that Roth will be able to join me for that one. I think you're going to get both of us on that review. But she's a very, very, very extraordinarily busy person.
She is so busy these days.
Everyone that keeps asking, she has so much on her plate. She was like supervising like 3 shoots last weekend, this weekend. So it's not, believe me, it's the opposite of what a lot of people are worried about, that she's so busy that she doesn't have time to do as much on camera.
Yeah, we would love to have her on camera more, but she's literally doing everything she can to keep all of the things that you love going.
And launch new stuff.
All the stuff that you will love.
Yeah, but I think there's a good chance that you'll be able to see both of us on the review for Aladdin, or at least I hope so. That'll be coming up later this week. Danielle, thank you for joining me on Charting.
Thank you
I hope
for
I didn't
having
just talk over everything and just throw numbers in your face.
Well, it's a numbers in your face show, Dan.
It is. That's
what
true.
the show is. And I like the numbers, and I'm glad to get to talk about that and get the perspective, and I'm glad that the audience does as well. So it's not just, always us covering MoviePass.
Yeah. Although it's so much fun.
It's really fun to cover.
It really is so much fun. My favorite was when the whole Gotti thing happened, and I had the opportunity to converge this show and MoviePass. It's like the chef's kiss. Perfect. Thank you for watching and sticking with me through my delirium. We will be back next Tuesday to recap the 4-day Memorial Day weekend here in the U.S. What will Aladdin do? How big will it open? What's it going to do around the world? How's Avengers going to hold up? How's Avatar going to look? So many questions. We'll be back here to tell you next week on Charting. Until then, talk to you soon.